everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet, brought to you by Anarchapulco, the world's largest anarcho-capitalist conference, held February 19th to 21st in 2016 in Acapulco, Mexico, right behind me here on the beach. And I have a guest I haven't had on for almost 3.5 years, Michael Fielding of the Sailboat Diaries. The last time we spoke, he was in Puerto Rico on trying to sail around, and he was trying out many different ways of living, trying to occupy different parts of land and private land ownership and trying to live off the grid. And he's gone through numerous experiences since then, and he's actually just completed a book called The Sailboat Diaries, and he's going to be talking about it at Anarchapulco, here in Acapulco. So first of all, Michael, great to talk to you again. I'm glad to see you're still alive.
Thanks. Great to talk to you too.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about the background since 2012 when we last talked to you. At that time, you were living on your sailboat. I believe you're in Puerto Rico. And then you went and tried to live on an uninhabited island. Is that right?
That's correct. So, yeah, I lived on my sailboat named Sovereignty in Puerto Rico for about a year. And during that time, I did some other sails. I went to the Virgin Islands, did a tour around there. And then by about the end of the summer of 2013, I was ready to do another test of inhabiting this uninhabited island named Little Anagua in the southern Bahamas. So I went with 3 of my friends and kind of tried to demonstrate that anybody can go to an uninhabited island and just start living there. It was kind of a test of the old social contract theory and the state of nature. So clearly, this uninhabited island, there was no one there to be offended by our presence. So the idea was to test what exactly do you do when you go to a new piece of land where there is no other humans. So we were investigating these questions like, should we form a government? How will we resolve disputes? You know,
that was the first thing you thought of, is forming a government?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't into it, but I just wanted to demonstrate that these are the kind of questions we should investigate when we inhabit a new piece of land. And obviously came to the conclusion we didn't need a government. We worked out all the problems amongst ourselves. And it was really a good lesson, I think, to that I carried on throughout my life, that I'm able to resolve disputes with other humans without the interference of what I would call terrorists, people using fear to get their political objectives accomplished. So that kind of pushed me into a new state of thinking, that we're kind of already living in anarchy. We don't have to wait for the state to dissolve. There will always be people out there trying to coerce us, but you can choose how you're going to react to those things in your own life. And I like to choose to resolve disputes with the people that I meet on a case-by-case basis and hopefully one-on-one, but you can always find a third-party dispute resolution helper without resorting to using the state, I think.
Yeah.
So after I went to the island, I continued.
Well, let's start. I want to hear a bit more about the island.
Sure.
Because I think you made some videos and stuff when you were living there, right? Because you were trying to create power generation and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So
do you have those videos, by the way? If so, we'll throw it in right now.
It's been a lot of fun to really investigate firsthand this kind of radical ethical stance about property use, because it is outside of what we are taught growing up, that some entity has the judicial authority to rule objectively on whether or not an individual can use land. And what I'm saying is, it's not up to some external authority. It's up to you. You have to decide for yourself whether or not it's okay to inhabit a piece of land, do any kind of action in your life. And that's what freedom's all about. Thinking long and hard about ethical problems and coming up with your own solutions. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to encourage everybody to think more for themselves and stop trusting authority figures. Be skeptical. It's getting pretty nice out here, and I'm pretty happy with the way things are coming. Actually, I had quite a few people asking if they can join me now, so maybe we'll get somebody else out here soon. But I wanted to talk more about why I think occupying the woods could be a great kind of general protest. So I've talked about why I'm out here, and that's because of my skepticism of the courts and the title system. I'm just not convinced that a piece of paper that says the word title on it really gives someone exclusive permission to use land, or permission. What does permission even mean? It doesn't mean it's unethical for me to use it. And after being out here like 2.5 months now, I can tell you with certainty that no one else is suffering because I'm here. No one even knows except our neighbor Doug, who's lived out here for 3 years. Alright, we got our full air-to-water tower connected. Here's the wind turbine. It's running connected to the batteries, which go over to the inverter, which powers this extension cord going up the side of the cliff, powers the dehumidifier, which is in that box, so that has a hose coming into our water tank, which goes through a water filter, down a hose, back down the cliffside, and that's so we can get water pressure. Oh yeah, feels great. Alright, this is our inaugural hot shower. Just warmed up about 1.5 gallons of water. Oh yeah. Feels pretty good. Well, that's the hot shower for you. See you guys later.
Yeah, it was kind of a proof of concept that you can carry the tools you need to live with you. Now, it didn't actually work, but I think with a little bit more money and time, we could have totally produced all our own electricity and water. That was the key because it's a desert island, so there is no really freshwater source available. So what I built was a wind-powered dehumidifier because the air over the island is very humid all the time. It just doesn't rain very much. So my thought was if we could harness the wind to charge batteries and then run that through a dehumidifier, we could actually suck the water out of the air and then purify the water and then drink it. So we were able to set up the whole thing, but we just didn't get enough wind the days we were there, and it was only for a week. So it was kind of a short-run test, but I think with a little bit more work and a little bit more money into, say, better wind turbine, maybe more solar panels or something like that, it would totally be possible to produce all the water we need on the island.
That's great. So you didn't stay there very long. What made you leave, and then where did you go next?
We left because we were mainly running out of food. So we did catch some fish and tried to explore for any kind of game to hunt or anything like that, but didn't really find anything. So we were mainly relying on rice and like canned foods and potatoes and other things that last a long time. But yeah, the food was just kind of running out by day 7, so we decided to leave and continue on to Key West. And after that, the boat was kind of falling apart, and I was also running out of money at that point. So I decided to go ahead and sell the boat there in Key West, and that actually took like 4 months. I took a while to fix it up and then find a buyer and negotiate all the price and everything. But after that, I kind of went on a land adventure across the United States. I drove my truck from Key West up to like Boston, Niagara Falls, down through Maryland, over to Texas, and eventually over to California. That was over the course of like several months, and stayed with different friends along the way and camped out of the truck and just explored new territory. And over that time, I was really noticing how much available land there is in the United States. When I left, I kind of had this idea that all the United States was kind of taken already, like it was all being used. But as I drove across, I noticed there's unused land everywhere that people won't even notice if you're there. So it kind of inspired me to try to live off the grid. So after California, my truck was falling apart, so I decided to sell that and fly back to Houston. And I had met a beautiful girl there, so that kind of inspired that choice. And also adventurous, so she decided to move into the forest with me in Houston. And this was another test of ethical land use, because on the island, it was pretty clear that nobody would be hurt if I went and lived there. But in Texas, it's a little less clear. The land we chose was owned by the government, by the U of H actually, but I went and investigated, and there's actually somebody already living there off the grid. That really gave me the courage that, oh, I can do this, you know, somebody's already doing it. So I left him a little note and asked his permission because I figured he was the one who had the most claim to this land. U of H owned it on paper, like at the courthouse, but I don't respect the papers at the courthouse. I respect human beings. So I asked this guy if he would mind if I set up my own camp kind of nearby, and he was cool with it. And so then over the course of 6 months, my girlfriend and I built a hut out off the grid and right across the street from U of H in this 34-acre forest that's just kind of unused. And after a while, decided to go up to Austin and did the same thing again for 6 months in Austin. I found some unused piece of land that people were already camping on, actually, and just found my own spot and built a hut, basically. And another friend came and moved out there, too. So the idea was always to build an off-grid village and have more people out there, but I guess it's kind of hard to convince people to move off the grid sometimes. So the most we ever got was 3 people, but we had parties where we had 10 to 12 out there, and one was called Trees and Us. So it was like trees and us, but also trees and us. So it was just a fun way to kind of demonstrate that we were living in anarchy already. We didn't have to respect the title system that the government uses.
Yeah, and I think you had a great name for it, Occupy the Woods or something?
Yeah, exactly. So I have a bunch of YouTube videos, Occupy the Wood updates, and it's like every month I made a little video so you can see kind of how my hut changed over time, all the things I built out there. So one kind of cool one, the water issue always fascinated me. So like I said, on the island, we developed this dehumidifier, and then in Texas, it actually rains a lot. So we didn't need to dehumidify the air, but we collected rainwater, and then I built what I called a water tower tree. So it was basically a bucket that had a string going up to a pulley on a tree, and I could raise it up 30 feet and get water pressure. And then it had a hose coming out with a shower spout. So I could heat up water, pour it in the bucket, pull it up the tree, and then get water pressure and take hot water showers out there in the woods. So it was really fun just to let my creativity run wild, you know, with this space that I could build whatever I wanted, basically.
Yeah, I know you were saying it's a bit of a take on Occupy Wall Street, that you made Occupy the Wood.
Yeah, exactly. So I always had a problem with Occupy Wall Street because people are kind of going to Wall Street and saying, you guys are bad, you're, you know, hurting us, and you're important, like your ideas matter, and you need to change for us to be free. And that never really made any sense to me because I think freedom is something you have to take on your own. So that's why I wanted to do Occupy the Woods, to kind of mirror that idea, but show that you have to take yourself out of the system and kind of work on your own to build what you need to have a happy life, and don't blame other people. Take that responsibility on your own and do it for yourself. So it was a kind of protest against the title system, and also just a way of learning more about what I actually need to survive and be happy on this earth.
That's great. And I know Adam Kokesh is doing something similar in, I believe it's New Mexico.
I think it's Arizona.
Arizona, okay. And he'll be at Anarchapulco as well. So a lot of people doing a lot of interesting things, and both inside the U.S. and outside the U.S., and you've done both now. So very interesting. And did you ever run into any problems? I know that in the U.S. there's been a number of people who've had a lot of problems trying to live off the grid. In fact, I think it's illegal in some places to live off the grid. And there's been some people, so-called homeless people, who built their own homes, so they weren't homeless anymore, in the middle of nowhere. And the government comes with bulldozers and just runs everything over, which is just unbelievably heinous. But that's what government is, really. Did you see anything like that along your travels inside the U.S.?
I didn't experience anything like that personally, but I did hear stories from other homeless, or I prefer houseless. I consider the earth my home. So anyways, the guy in Houston who I ran into in the woods, he had already built his hut out there. He told me that he'd actually been out there for 3 years, but about 2 years ago, the U of H police came and kicked him out and brought like a bulldozer, some kind of machinery, and tore all his stuff up. And but he just waited a while and moved back and rebuilt, and they haven't been there since. So that's kind of an inspiring one. And the other one was up in Austin. I just like going off into forest, and it's amazing how many little off-grid huts or villages you'll find. And I came across 2 guys that had a similar story where they had worked for years, kind of built up a really nice place, and then I think it's called code enforcement came and found their spot and kind of took everything, so just stole all their belongings and ruined their home. But yeah, it's definitely illegal what I was doing, but that's kind of my way of demonstrating that I don't need to obey the laws. Laws only apply to law-abiding citizens. And I like to take it on a case-by-case basis and see if I'm threatened by any human, whether it's police or a normal citizen. It doesn't matter to me. It's a threat of violence. And, you know, sometimes they overpower me and I'll comply just for, you know, live to fight another day kind of thing. But just because there's a threat written on a piece of paper doesn't mean I have to comply. I'm going to wait until they physically show their presence. And the whole time I did the Houston Woods, I did see cops walk by a couple times, but they never came and talked to us or even saw our place. And the same in Austin. I would see them parked on the street outside, and definitely made me nervous. I didn't know if they were there about me or if it was just a coincidence, but they never saw me going in. I'm pretty sneaky, and never had to interact with them. So I did it for about a year and never really had a bad experience, at least not with authorities.
That's good. So you've just finished your book, I believe, Sailboat Diaries. I believe you're going around promoting it right now. There it is right there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the book and what's in it and what it's all about?
Sure. So it kind of follows my journey of how I came to be an anarchist and how I've kind of applied those thoughts into my own life. So it starts out with this timeline I laid out when I was 16, and I was still a constitutionalist at that time. And I could see that the U.S. Constitution failed to restrain the government here, but I still kind of liked the idea of a constitution for a framework for a society. So I kind of wrote my own, and I wrote my own Declaration of Independence. And the whole idea was to go to this island, Little Nagua, and try to build a new society and then secede from the Bahamas, which claimed it, and start our own country. Over the course of my life, my ideas changed, and I came to realize constitutions and governments will never prevent people from doing bad things, and we have to take it more on a case-by-case basis. Kind of, we're already living in anarchy, now what, you know, that kind of idea. So the book follows my travels and awakening to that new idea, and so it's full of both sailing stories and just thoughts, you know, that I was having along the way. And another kind of cool thing I put throughout the book is a bunch of QR codes so that readers will be able to scan the book with their phone and actually see videos and pictures and links to other things throughout the book. So it's kind of, you know, trying to make you feel like you're really there. And yeah, it follows a lot of things we just talked about and a lot of the reasons why I did those things. I always thought, you know, actions speak louder than words, but when you combine them, they're one of the most powerful things in the world. So I was trying to take a stand, but also tell people why I'm taking a stand. So the book kind of concludes with my experience at Freedom Fest in Las Vegas and how that was a little bit of a turning point because I realized that I could be one of these people spreading liberty too. I had been doing it a lot on the internet and, you know, just on my YouTube channel and Twitter and stuff, but that kind of pushed me to start trying to speak in public, which I actually had some problems with at first. I went to this place called the Jenner House in Houston, which is a really cool performance community, and tried to get up and talk about my experience in the woods, and I just froze the first time. And it took me a couple months to try again, but I've been going every month, and every time it gets easier to talk and more fun. And that's what kind of gave me the courage to put the book together and actually start touring and spreading these ideas, because it's no good if I just keep them locked up in my brain or, on my Twitter page. How many people read my Twitter? So it's all about trying to get some of these realizations out there and more start a conversation, get other people thinking and hear their feedback too, because that's how I'm going to grow the most, is by putting my ideas out there and letting people get back to me with their ideas, and then we all grow together. So that's kind of where I've been at. I also recorded the whole thing as an audiobook because I prefer audiobooks, so I felt it would be hypocritical to make people read when I prefer to listen. So I made these little flash drives that are full of the audiobook, and it's also available all for free on sailboatdiaries.com or for donation. So people are free to check that out if you want to listen to me read the story to you.
That's great. And will you be able to bring some books down to Anarchapulco?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm planning to have my second edition out by then. I ordered like 150 for my first run and getting kind of close to selling out already. And but I found little typos and things I want to correct in there, so I figure I'll fix everything and bring a big batch down to Anarchapulco.
That's great. We're going to have a lot of books, a lot of authors at Anarchapulco. We're going to actually have an Anarchapulco sort of bookstore sort of a setup where you can all leave your books, so you don't have to stand there all day and in front of your books. And we'll also, of course, I'm sure most or all will be available for signing, and that includes Larkin Rose, Walter Block, so many great people, Adam Kokesh with his book Freedom. So it should be great and very interesting to hear your stories. I was a sailor until I sank my boat in El Salvador. I was trying to sail around the world. Sailing stories are always very interesting, and so I'm sure it'd be very interesting to hear about more of them down here in Acapulco.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you there.
Yeah, great. So why don't you let people know again where they can find the book, the audio book. You mentioned you have Facebook, Twitter, although YouTube. Let people know about all those.
Sure. The book, the audiobook, the ebook, it's all available at sailboatdiaries.com. And that's also my Twitter name, at Sailboat Diaries. And my YouTube channel is Sailboat Diaries. And then on Facebook, I'm Michael Fielding. So, yeah, I'd love to connect with lots of your listeners and hopefully keep the conversation rolling.
That's great. Look forward to seeing you down here at Anarchapulco. We'll have the links to Anarchapulco down below. It's February 19th to 21st, as I mentioned. So many great people are coming. So many interesting people have done interesting things, like Michael, and he's tried to take over an island in the Bahamas, but only brought a week's worth of food, and so had to leave. And then he took over some of the woods and occupied the woods. So very interesting people doing lots of interesting things and living differently. Just living sort of not the standard lifestyle that most people live. And I think you would agree, Michael, it's definitely an interesting way to live.
Oh yeah, it's been a blast. It's definitely the best years of my life, and it feels so much longer because I'm filling it with, different things all the time. And it feels like a decade since I've been out of college, but it's only been 3 years, and I've just been having a blast.
That's great. So we'll look forward to seeing you down here. We're going to have lots of other sort of people who've traveled, expats. There's a lot of interest in perpetual traveler, perpetual traveler, prior taxpayer sort of lifestyle, which I've lived for about 15 years now. So we're going to have panels on that in Acapulco. Should be very interesting. So check that out, February 19th to 21st here in Acapulco, Mexico. And so that's it for Anarchast. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share down below. That's how we can get these ideas out there more into this very statist and indoctrinated world, and let people know there's other ways to live, and in many cases, in most cases, it's better ways to live. So that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
What is it that woke you up? What is it that converted you? What is it that gave you confidence in this alternative perspective? I shouldn't say alternative, but this new perspective that will soon be the mainstream, and take all of the best strengths from all of those books and combine them. And it shows how politicians use that fear and that emotional manipulation. But we sort of assume, hey, once you get that, it's not going to work on you anymore.
You know, I started reading Frédéric Bastiat when I was probably like 13, 14 years old. And you know, his disciples actually became anarcho-capitalists. We founded this country because we felt that we need another tax haven or tax heaven in Europe. Actually, you know, they have no other means to stopping this than just putting police there, the Croatia side.
From Acapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.